All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the show that never ends. New York Giants Preservation Society, Thursday night, seemingly annual meeting. Before we get started, uh, next couple of weeks, with Jeff Stewart talking about Twilight teams, David Krell will be talking about the 1962 season with the Giants in the playoffs and the World Series and JFK. Then hopefully on the 13th, we'll have Alex Pavlovich, Giant beat reporter for NBC Bay Area, and we will go from there. If we don't get Alex, I might shift people, or we'll just take that'll be Thursday after Mother's Day. Tonight we have our first guest of when we started Zooming. Back then we weren't Zooming, we were Google Meeting. And that is Noel Hynd. Noel, of course, wrote a great book about the Giants and the Polo Grounds. He also contributed a great piece about Johnny Antonelli, the SABR. And Johnny Antonelli would have celebrated his birthday last week, I believe. But pleasure to have you back, Noel. And the floor is yours. I will share screen with you whenever you need to do something. But let's give it up on Noel Hynd.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the, I have a presentation which I did live, which actually I found easier at SABR in Los Angeles shortly after Mr. Antonelli died. And I put it together because as you'll see in the slides that come through, he was kind of my favorite Giant, even right there up next to Willie Mays when I was a kid and still watching games. So it kind of hit me when he passed away. I knew he was around 90 or approaching 90. But let me see whether I can tee this up right. This is the first time I've brought a Zoom in, so I promise you I'm probably going to fumble a few times, but let's see what we can do here. Gary, you let me know whether I've got the screen going.
You got it. I turned it over to you just like we did practice, so you should be able to do whatever you did this morning.
Okay, what do you got now?
Nothing.
Okay, I need to go back to screen sharing. This should do it, I hope.
That's it.
Okay.
Perfect.
What do you got? One frame, or do you have the whole thing?
We got the one big frame that's highlighted on the left, and then the big box across from it.
Okay. Let me rearrange my screen here a little bit. Now you got a full slide?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. So as you can see, this is in memory of Johnny Antonelli. I'm going to read along with you. I know you're all literate and can read because most of you have read books. But when I was a kid, I was growing up in Connecticut, and we got the stations that anybody else got. We had, I think, 5 stations, the 3 networks and 2 locals. The Yankees were on channel 11. And for some reason, I always gravitated to the New York Giants when they were on. Don't ask me why. It was just one of those things. But my favorite player was Johnny Antonelli. He played for the team I watched most on TV, the New York Giants. And I think I was fascinated at the time by the weird configuration of that ballpark, the Polo Grounds. Frankly, I'm still fascinated by it. I hope Getty Images doesn't mind that I've swiped one of their images for the day. Can anybody tell me who that is hitting? That looks a little bit like a Dodger game, doesn't it?
Ernie Banks.
William.
Looks like Ernie Banks.
Yeah, but at 38, number 32, did Banks wear 32?
I think that's his number.
Ernie Banks.
Rogers, if you get this right, I go to Ripken's house and we get you the gift. Come on.
No, I don't know who that is.
Okay, well, we know it's the bleachers.
Well,
Out
you
there.
came in second.
They're fairly full. Let's go on. One of the things I think that appealed to me about Antonelli was he always seemed like a big kid to me. That's because he was in his very early 20s when he became a star with the Giants. And there's a picture of him with his dad growing up in Rochester, New York. Gus was basically hardcore working guy from Italy. As you can see, once worked on the New York Central Railroad for 13, well, actually in Italy, he worked for 13 cents an hour, emigrated to the United States, laid track for the New York Central in upper New York State. His dad made sure the boy, Johnny, was really good from an early age. I believe I read that his father even rented a small stadium so scouts would come and see him. As you know, he got signed. Here he is in 1948 in the summer, right after he'd signed. It was one of the first bonus babies, if you guys remember the term, most of you do, who signed the, as we'll see in a moment, one would think that as a young guy signing for $55,000, it's a blessing, but it was indeed a mixed blessing because you had guys, veterans on the team who had never made money like that. So there was a lot of resentment. The Braves were also in a pennant race that year, 1948. I know that sounds strange, the Boston Braves in a pennant race. But nonetheless, they were in one and they won it. And because of the rules at the time, he couldn't be sent down. So he had to stay with the team as the season continued. He was part of an 18-year-old battery with Del Crandall. This is a picture of the two of them, both when they were 18 years old. Often you see this picture reprinted and it mentions when they were with the Milwaukee Braves. Anybody looking at the picture carefully can see those bees on the caps. The older players on the Braves resented the kids and how much bonus money they had received. There on the right and on the left, you see Spahn and Sane. And obviously they were two of the older guys who were not particularly happy with Antonelli's presence on the team, much less how much money he got. Gonna take a pause here for a sip of water. In fact, jumping ahead a little bit, Spahn was instrumental in getting Antonelli traded because Spahn pointed out to the general manager or the management of the Braves that they had three starting left-handers, and that was deemed not to be that good. So Johnny didn't pitch much his first 3 years in Boston. He was 5-10 in 42 games, 57 innings pitched. And then along came Uncle Sam, and into the Army he went, as you'll see, with some of the other guys who were in the Army that year. I probably don't have to identify the holy trinity of Willie, Elvis, and Teddy Baseball down on the right. But that's the world we were living in. Obviously, Elvis went in later than Antonelli did. Elvis was in around, I guess, 58, 59, 60. But as many of you found out from personal experience, when you were 18, Uncle Sam was waiting for you and they had things to do with you. Incidentally, jumping ahead again a little bit, Antonelli was stationed in Virginia, Fort McLean, I think. And he actually played baseball as a pitcher for an Army team in Virginia, and he played with Willie Mays. I don't know whether Mays was on the same team or not, but I do know that Antonelli built an incredible record in the service, something like 42-2, pitching to the other soldiers. It was either 20-something-2 or 42-2. It's in the SABR entry or the Wikipedia entry on him. Let's go along here. There, I believe, is his first baseball card. That's the first year in Milwaukee. As you can see, Major League Baseball coming to Milwaukee was a big thing. This was a program. In the middle, you'll see a advertising brochure to sell tickets that was handed out. And these were the people that the Milwaukee fans, notice they're all National League players. Hank Sauer, Roy Campanella, Robin Roberts, Stan Musial. It's practically a preview of the Hall of Fame. I think I see Ralph Kiner up there on the left, Hoyt Wilhelm. Actually, looking at this thing, I don't think there's, Roy McMillan is not in the Hall of Fame, and Hank Sauer. Everybody else on that page is. On the right,
Simmons?
no, you're right. Simmons is not either. On the right, you see Early County Stadium in Milwaukee, which obviously was a minor league ballpark, and then pressed into service for several years, actually, for the Braves. There's the 53 Braves. Somewhere he's in that picture. 23 now, older, riser, and can throw really hard. Went 12-12 for the Braves in 53. That's pretty good. And if memory serves me, which occasionally it still does, he was one in maybe the top 5 or 6 in ERA. He pitched in a very good game against the Giants that year. I think he shut them out, and they took notice for later on. In February 54.
No, can you stop 1 second?
Sure.
Listen, I only have a screen here, screen share, so I can't see everybody, but please turn off your mics because I can't do it from here. Okay, thank you. Noel, it's all yours. I'm sorry.
Okay, that not a problem. I don't have to identify the upper left-hand picture to a bunch of Giant fans, but I will say that Bobby Thompson in that Braves uniform sure looks strange to our sensibilities and our memories. In any case, the Giants needed pitching badly in 1954. And so Horace Stoneham, who was always almost sentimental with some of his favorite players, was reluctant to send Thompson anywhere, much less trade him away. But the Braves insisted, and they needed a right fielder or a left fielder. The trade was so sudden, I love this, that they had to put the Topps people put the Giants insignia onto a Braves cap for the baseball card that year. Now, here's a weird historical quirk. Bobby Thompson broke his ankle in early 1954 during the season. The Braves had a young outfielder who you see on the left here, who was ready to come up, and Thompson, going on the disabled list, opened up the opportunity for Henry Aaron to come up to the Braves. This is a picture of him with his manager in Jacksonville. I think the fellow's name was Ben Garrity. And Henry Aaron always said that Garrity was the best manager he ever had. He said Garrity never told him how good he was. He told him how good he could be. And from what I know, from what I've read, Garrity also supported the black players on the team in places where the repellent segregation was still going on.
Going too fast.
All right, I've got a blank screen.
We got everything here.
I got that picture.
I'm on the Zoom for the,
Sorry, I lost my, you've got me, but I don't have you.
Yeah, we see all your pictures.
They're wonderful pictures too.
The end.
It went all the way to the end.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going,
Now it's the
what do you
beginning.
got now?
The beginning.
Beginning. Keep scrolling, keep scrolling, keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. That's next one. That's Henry Aaron.
Yeah, you
Okay.
had that one, right?
Yeah, now we need the next one.
Okay. So
Okay,
this is
you're
what
good.
Thompson said about being, you should have, it was the best break of my career, correct?
That's what we have.
Okay, excellent. Well, he was not talking about the break to Thompson's ankle. He was talking about the break of going to New York. Now, confession time. I had two other favorite players who played baseball at the Polo Grounds. Here's one of them. And the other is this guy.
Yep.
No names necessary, right?
Right.
And here's what Stan once said about Antonelli. And John, well, you can read it. Johnny Antonelli was a good pitcher with great control for several years. In his 20-game peak, and that started in 1954 when the Giants went to the World Series, he came up with a change of pace that made him, whatever it said,
Outstanding.
made him obviously tough to hit. Blazing fastball, DeRocher encouraged him to use it. You know how DeRocher played? Throw it high and inside, high and tight. Leo liked that. Here's a guy who also helped Antonelli and liked him on the Giants, and also obviously gave him some pretty good pitching tips. I don't know this, but I'm guessing that Magley and Antonelli had a pretty good relationship. Both of them, I believe, were from upstate New York. If I'm remembering, Magley was from around the Syracuse area. And of course, Johnny was from the Rochester area. Imagine pitching with a lineup that featured one of the greatest players ever. There you go. That's Dusty Rhodes, who always talked about as a great teammate. And Sal, again, the barber. No name needed to identify the barber, but the Dodgers had their own various things they called him. And Sal could be fun sometimes too. I don't know what was the occasion of this picture, but he was tough enough to chomp a baseball. One of the things Antonelli mastered was getting guys to hit to center field. If you had Willie Mays to play center for you in a ballpark that was shaped like a bathtub, your best pitch was anything that would be in the air to center field. So 1954, Johnny's greatest season, 21-7, National League leading 2.3, well, you can read it, ERA, 6 shutouts, shared the league lead for winning percentage with Hoyt Wilhelm. The only reason he did not win the Cy Young Award that year was there was no Cy Young Award. He was, it was the best pitching performance of the year. Sporting News gave him the Pitcher of the Year award. 21 is a big deal, and I think he was 23 when he won those 21, and pretty damned excited. So then there was the 1954 World Series. You've all seen pictures of that. Here's a ticket, here's a program. Johnny gave up a home run to I think, I forget who, to start the second game. And after that, it was all Giants. He pitched a gem, a complete game.
Smith.
More stuff from that World Series, including a ring. Down at the bottom, I think that's a Dusty Rhodes pinch hit home run, or actually the game-ending home run. Help me on this. That's Mays.
Williams.
Williams,
Davey Williams.
Gardner.
Gardner.
Lockman,
And
Urban.
Irvin.
Irvin.
Dark.
And is that Dark?
Dark.
Irving
I
Rhodes.
love these
Mays,
pictures of all Giants. That's Don Mueller on far right. I believe that's Dusty Rhodes,
Dusty
Irvin,
Rhodes.
and Mays.
Those are great pictures.
that-
Phenomenal.
One out in the 8th inning of Game 4. DeRocher, who learned a lot about managing from John McGraw, from watching McGraw, figured that this was the time to close out the Indians, and he brought in Antonelli to get the 5 last outs of Game 4, figuring that if you close the door on them now, that would be the end of it. And that was the end of it. One of the most amazing upsets ever in a World Series. So now Johnny's hanging out with some baseball elite in the off season when he's picking up awards. To this audience, I don't have to identify Yogi. And you can see that Johnny was a big kid. Yogi, I think, was about 5'8" or something, which would count as a dwarf these days. Anyway, this was an award ceremony, I think, at the Sporting News following the '54 season. The club, this is the part of the Giants that I remember, unfortunately. The club declined very badly. Attendance did also. They dropped to 6th place. I forget, they won 67 games that year. I think Ruben Gomez won maybe 13 and Antonelli won 20. So you can see that it was almost like Spawn and Sane. I can remember, maybe this is why I was so attracted to Antonelli. He was the guy for the Giants who would come in and win the game. I believe he pitched one of the Dodger games against the Dodgers in Jersey City also. Started the last game the New York Giants ever played in New York. Went to San Francisco with the team, and as it turned out, was much maligned in San Francisco. But if you go back and look at the record, he was a pretty good pitcher for them, even though, as he would freely have admitted, he absolutely hated that Seal Stadium where they played for the first 2 years. This is where the problems began in San Francisco. He got beaten in Seal Stadium by one of those wind-blown fly balls. Here's his quote from Sports Illustrated. "I get beat by 2 lousy fly balls," Sports Illustrated quoted him as saying. "A pitcher should be paid double for working here. Worst in America. Every time you stand up there, you've got to beat the hitter and a 30-mile-per-hour wind." Fans took that to be a criticism of the city and not the ballpark. And they were on him ever after. That's the old Seal Stadium. I think this picture is probably from maybe the 30s or the 40s, but the contours never changed. And as I say down here on the right, this was before Candlestick, which was even worse. After he popped off, the fans booed him. He never got back in their good graces. I never said anything bad about the city. He said just Seal Stadium. If you go back and look at it, he was absolutely right. 1960, the Giants began playing at Candlestick. Antonelli had trouble winning as a starter that year, shifted to the bullpen, 6 and 7 from the bullpen. He was having arm problems also. And Bill Rigney, I believe, left the Giants in the middle of the season, and they shipped him off to, of all people, the Indians, whom he closed out in the World Series. After the '61 season, his contract it went back to Milwaukee, but then it ended up with the Mets. He retired, returned to business in his native Rochester. He owned 24 Firestone tire stores in the area. There was a funny side story to that because Casey Stengel knew that he was on the list of pitchers that he was going to get in '62 for the first year Mets. And for whatever reason, perhaps good foresight, Antonelli chose not to go back to the Polo Grounds and not to play for Casey. I'm sure Johnny was smart enough to realize that pitching for a slowing down Richie Ashburn in center field, as opposed to in his prime Willie Mays in center field, was going to lead to a lot of inside the park home runs in a place like the Polo Grounds. Casey mentioned, well, I wish him one of the quotes from Casey was something to the effect of, "I wish him well in the black donut business," referencing the tire business. He actually did extremely well in the tire business and was in it for 40 years. This is his place in Rochester is always kind of a local celebrity and hero there. When his career ended, 126 and 110. Very, very laudable record. Very good. And he pitched for some very poor teams sometimes. Imagine if he pitched for the Yankees. As I said, the tire franchise went well. He used to hang out, you can see on the left, with some of the little leaguers. I believe there's a stadium or a field named after him. Flashing forward with Del Crandall, they visited the Baseball Hall of Fame together, a few years ago. From time to time, he even turned up at San Francisco Giants events. This is a 1995 shot of him with Ralph Branca. They obviously knew each other from New York. He was on hand when the Giants celebrated their 50th year on the West Coast, signed autographs, and was a few weeks, about a year, a little more than a year ago, passed away after a battle with cancer. This old shot of the Polo Grounds is both happy and bittersweet to me, as is the memory. Huge write-up in the New York Times when he passed away, telling you much more than I can tell you in 25 minutes. A fine man, a fine pitcher, an integral part of the history, I would even of New York Giants and San Francisco Giants baseball. But I would also say a key person if you discuss New York baseball in its entirety. A very, very dominant pitcher in his time. I know I will always remember him, and so will guys who remember the New York Giants. Autograph ball, and that's my song and dance on this.
No, great job, Noel.
Thank you. I even got through it. Let's see what I can get
Did a
the
great
screen.
job. Turn the screen. There we go.
Say Noel?
Yeah.
Hi, Noel. This is Stu Thornley. I certainly benefited from your books on the Polo
Thank you.
Grounds, on the Giants, all of that. I've got a story. I hope it's okay to tell. I'll make it quick, but I was associated Antonelli with this. My dad was an usher for the Minneapolis Millers at Nicollet Park Met Stadium, and told me when the Giants came for an exhibition game, after the game, my dad had changed into street clothes and was leaving, and another usher, friend of my dad's, was trying to hold back all the kids who wanted to get autographs from the Giants. And so, kind of as a joke or whatever, this guy said to the kids, "Hey, here's one of the Giants now." And they swarmed around my dad, who just took somebody's program and started scribbling on it as he worked his way through all the kids and handed it back. And he had signed Johnny Antonelli. And my dad took off running, saying all these kids were yelling, "Johnny, come back, we want your autograph." So that's what I always associated with it. I did send Antonelli a letter when I was working on the anthology of the Polo Grounds, hoping to get his autograph. It just came back as refused. But a question, when he was going to the Mets, and I have a reason for asking this, as we were reading Jimmy Breslin's book for our book club, was Wood Matthews involved in all at scouting him or talking to him or anything like that?
I don't know whether he was or wasn't, so I can't really nudge that question in either direction. From what I know, I still think Antonelli could have pitched fairly well on a major league level. The problem, of course, is if you're the one or two guy with Roger Craig on that first year team, you're going to end up 8-24 also. So, did he want to have that happen? So I'm not sure that a scouting report ever worked against him in that case, but somebody else might know better than I.
Well, the reason I asked is just, it hit me as he showed him at a tire dealership in Rochester. Jimmy Breslin's got some stories I'm trying to sort out, and one is about the signing of Bob G. Miller by Wood Matthews. And according to Breslin, Miller was ensconced with a car dealership himself, and Matthews talked him into coming to the Mets, which doesn't add up because Miller was still with the Reds and all of that. But just when I saw the tire dealership. I just wondered if maybe Breslin had conflated an Antonelli story with the Bob G. Miller.
Well, Jimmy was, there was an old newspaperman's adage, never let the facts get in the way of a good story. So you can take it from there. Jimmy could embellish from time to time. I don't know, though, I'm guessing.
Yeah, thanks.
No, by the way, you did a great job. You're all nervous. The pictures were fabulous. Your story was great. I'd like to turn it over to Judge Jim. Jim, I'm sure you have something to say. It's all yours.
No, I just want to tell you that was fantastic.
Thank you.
I'll start with this. This is when I was about 7 years old. I was born and raised in Rochester, still live here. So when I was about 7 years old, my dad went to Firestone and came home with this signed picture of Johnny. And it made me the Giants fanatic that I've remained. And when I went away to college, my mother gave away all my baseball cards and my picture of Johnny Antonelli. So when I met Johnny about 40 years later, I told him the story, and he gave me this and signed, which is the exact same picture that I had originally got. So I got a chance to.
And you're sure it was really Johnny as opposed to the dude that Stu was talking about, right?
Definitely Johnny. And I had a chance to. I had lunch with him 5-6 times and get to know him a little bit over the last 20 years, and just a great guy. He got a kick out of the fact that my wife and I had Johnny Antonelli jerseys. So whenever we went to a game, this was at a Mets game in New York, we're wearing our Antonelli jerseys, and he always got a kick out of that. So I was always a big fan. And one of the things you pointed out, Noel, and it couldn't be more true, is what just a gentleman he was, and he was a great guy. And I had a tragedy in my family, and I lost a grandson about 4 years ago. And Johnny sent over a ball for me to give to his brother. And this is one of the balls that when he went to 2010, they gave up to that 50-year anniversary. They gave him about a dozen of these baseballs with the San Francisco stamp on it. And he signed it for the grandson I lost for his brother. And when he gets old enough, he's going to get this, and Giants will live on in our family for a long time. But he was a great guy, great memories, great stories, and just a treasure to know. And
Jim, did you recognize a lot of those photos in Rochester?
Oh yeah, oh absolutely, yeah. He used to, Oak Hill Country Club. He was a member at Oak Hill Country Club, which is we've hosted. Oak Hill's hosted some major tournaments. We had PGA and the U.S. Open there, and Johnny was a member there, and so I had lunch with him there a couple of times, and he was over there a lot. There's other thing, and there's a great book if you haven't seen it on Johnny. No, I don't know. Have you seen this one by Scott Petoniak?
I've seen it, and despite the fact that I have about 300 books in my baseball library, I do not have that one, but it's sort of on my hit list for what I want to get.
You would enjoy this. It's a real good read.
Sure.
And it's just got some great stories about Johnny. One of the things you mentioned was before he got signed, his father had set up that showcase for him. That was actually in our AAA stadium, in Red Wings Stadium. We were the
right.
He was
Okay.
a Cardinal fan growing up because we were the Red Wings, which were the Cardinals team back then. And his father set it up there, and he got about 8,000 people present and a bunch of scouts. And just so you know, Giants almost got him right from the start. They just got outbid a little bit. There was a Giant scout there, and the Brave scout outbid him by about $5,000, I think. So we almost had him right from the start, but that was good.
Yeah. If I can stay with you for 30 seconds,
Sure.
All of those stories you told come as no surprise to me. And it just occurred to me as I was listening to them that maybe when I was a little kid and was attracted to players, notice it's Musial, it's Mays, it's Antonelli. I even like Pee Wee Reese. I just kind of gravitated towards the good guys.
Yeah.
And even before that, I knew that they were, although my father could give me hints on some of the players. My father was a newspaper man in Philadelphia in the 20s, Boston and Philadelphia in the 20s and 30s. And he used to tell me stories about Ty Cobb and some of these other people. And
Nice guy.
you cannot sell me on the new Ty Cobb light, because I heard all these stories about him as a player from what the newsmen used to see.
Yeah.
Go ahead, next question. Jan?
Steve, go ahead, Steve.
I'm sorry.
Steve, turn on your mic.
correct me if I'm wrong, I think for a long period of time, Johnny Antonelli spent half the year in Rochester and half the year in New Mexico. One of my close friends here was in New Mexico one summer, and Antonelli was doing a signing, and he got me a Johnny Antonelli autograph. This is a great presentation, Noel. The photos are priceless. You can just
Thank
add
you.
one thing to your presentation. Magley was from Buffalo. So
Okay, that's right.
Yes, Niagara Falls.
didn't want to correct it, but you're such a good guy, you may as well get it right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. In the future, I'll run my presentations past you and you can.
Well, you could have done your presentation the first 15, 20 minutes with the three of us, the winner of the trivia contest, the president and me, and we would have figured it
Yeah.
out. But wonderful
There you
photos. Amazing.
Thank you.
Anybody want to ask Noel a question? Bill, go ahead.
I promised Steve a trivia question, and Noel, if you'll bear with me, it is baseball, but it is not Johnny Antonelli. It is today, April 22nd, 1957. Baseball history was made that day, and many people said it never could happen, but it did. It happened at Roosevelt Stadium
Oh, yeah.
in a game between the Dodgers and the Phillies. What happened? Anybody?
Rich, here's your chance.
No,
You know, I watched that game on TV, but you know, I can't always remember something that I saw 60 some years ago on TV.
Dodgers
could-
were like-
It was the first professional National League game in New Jersey. I can tell you that. Didn't they start with the Phillies, the Dodgers? No,
I'm sorry?
that's right. They were there in 56.
They were there in 56. It had nothing to do with Roosevelt Stadium. That was just a happenstance. Actually, what it was the most biased, the most racist franchise in America, the Philadelphia Phillies, finally broke down and let a player of color play. And that was John I. Kennedy, John Irvin Kennedy, who played only 5 games for them. But in that game, he was a pinch runner in the 8th inning. And I always thought that it was ironic that Mayo Smith, the manager for the Phillies, pinch ran. He was a pinch runner. He could have scored the tying run. And who did he substitute for? The most racist manager at post-World War II and the most racist guy on that club, Solly Hemus. He pinch ran him for Solly Hemus. I only wonder what Solly thought when this black guy came in to run for him. And it's just a shame that John didn't get a longer career than he did, which was just 5 games. But Bob Lemke, God bless him, made a card of him. That card does not exist. You'll recognize it as a 1958 Topps. There is no 58 Topps of John I. Kennedy, but some players, certainly because of what they did, deserve a card, even if they never got one. And Bob thought that too. But just a little bit of trivia that happened today, but a big step forward that finally the exclamation point was put on that by Pumpsy Green the next year when he finally
2 years, 59.
I'm sorry?
59.
59, 2 years later. 59, he came, and the second most racist franchise, the Boston Red Sox, were finally integrated. Well, that's my part for today on racism. And this day in racism, it was finally brought down, at least in your old Philadelphia, but not there, actually, in Roosevelt.
Listen, I appreciate that anecdote because one of the things I'm working on right now is a book about the 1957 season. And I might have missed that, but that will go in there. So
Yeah,
thank you.
the Phillies were way behind the time, and it cost them dearly in the 50s.
No,
Go ahead, Gary.
before we any other questions might be asked, you will be joining us later in the year. Can you tell us what that will be about? The 57 Dodger Giant series games I think you were working on?
Yeah, I'll tell you right now a little bit about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just- And then we'll get back to some more questions, but Noel will be speaking to us later on in the year about something else he's working on. Go ahead, Noel.
The 1957 season was the first one that I really remember from start to finish. I can actually remember 56 and the 56 World Series, but the 57 was the first year that I actually went to 2 games. One was against the Cardinals at the Polo Grounds, and the other was the 6th game of the 1957 World Series, which was my first trip to Yankee Stadium. And for some reason, that year, particularly since it was the last year of the Giants and Dodgers in New York, has always resonated with me as an incredibly fascinating season. I don't think you can find a National League game that didn't have at least one Hall of Famer in it. And you can't say that for the American League that year, and you can't say that for a lot of other seasons. It was also the season of Sputnik. It was the middle of the Eisenhower administration. It's historically a fascinating year. So, as you know, I can never shut up on something that's interesting to me. So I'm going to spill it all into a book and see if I can put it on a paying basis. I had an English teacher back in that era, by the way, who ordered me to stop writing about baseball. And as you can see, I ignored his advice.
And you were gonna talk about the Giants, Dodgers, the whole rivalry in that year.
The centerpiece of the book is the 22 games that were played. Thank you for asking. Between the 2 New York clubs. Obviously, it was the last year. There was a lot going on, even beyond the plans to move. And as Carl Erskine said on your show earlier this year, the players didn't really know that much about what was going on. They went into that final game of the Dodgers. Many of the Dodgers went into that final game of the season thinking they actually still could be in Brooklyn the next year. They were saying to reporters, well, I hope it doesn't happen at the end of the final game. As you know, it did.
Steve?
Go ahead.
You know, Noel, see if you can get, I had a cassette, which doesn't do you much good, of the last game between the Giants and Dodgers at the Polo Grounds with Vince Scully doing most of the announcing. And between innings, he would go over things that took place there, a football game, a boxing match. But even at 57, when he was relatively new, I mean, timing was everything. And I remember, I forget which inning it was, Mr. Drysdale, meet Mr. Mays. Mays comes up. Sure enough, the first pitch, he gets beyond Duke Snyder for a triple in that last game. I think it was a 3-2 game. The Giants won. I think El Mavallo was pinch hitting. That's a great tape if you can you can feed off that one. The last
was it the last game
at the Polo Grounds?
At the Polo Grounds. Actually, you know what? The Library of Congress got in touch with me about that game. They want me to write some notes for the website on it. So yeah, I will be looking at that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
That radio broadcast off the Dodger Network, that may be on YouTube. If not, John Miley owns the rights to it. He sells them.
That's right. Miley's collection, right?
Yep.
Anybody else have questions regarding John Antonelli before I turn it over to Mars?
Can I just mention, this is Ed Freer.
Yeah.
Can I just mention, I'd just like to mention that I was at the Polo Grounds in 57 for a Giant Dodger game. Sat behind first base, and you could see, I can still see Gil Hodges as clear as the sun cast. But the Padres pitching, I think the game was over like in 2 hours and 15 minutes. The other thing I remember distinctly about the game, though, as for information, is when you left the Polo Grounds, the outside was pretty chaotic because, you know, it was one of the reasons probably why they moved. But it was a wonderful game. I went down with World War II veterans, and they all had a good time. And so I was at that game at 57 in May, before we knew they were going to move. Thanks.
Could I make a comment?
You most certainly can.
Yeah, I'm Jerry Austin. I'm new to this, but
Jerry, nice to. I couldn't figure out who you were. I'm so glad you joined us this week.
Yeah, thank you. 2 things. One, first, I became a Giant fan because I was in the 2nd grade at PS 75 in the Bronx, and for some reason, this day in September, I ran to the 5 and dime because they had a TV set and people were in front of it, and I pushed my way to the front, and Bobby Thompson came up and hit the home run. And I became a Giant fan, forever after that. I was at the last game the Giants played in the Polo Grounds. It was Bob Friend beat him 6-1.
9-1.
They're about 5 or 6.
9-1.
Okay, but it was Bob Friend, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And after the game was over, and I don't know, whoever was still there ran onto the field to get souvenirs, and whether they were picking up sod from the infield or outfield, or as you remember, you can see the picture, the bullpens were on the field, and people were getting pitching rubbers and all that. But then everybody marched out to center field because that's where the clubhouse was, and they stood there and they started chanting, "We want Stoneham," with a noose around his neck. And the next day, it was the front page of all the tabloids to picture the people on the field. But when I was the last couple of years that they were at the Polo Grounds, I lived a bus ride away in the 163rd Street bus, and the stop before the Polo Grounds was Yankee Stadium, and the bus let you off on was called High Bridge, and you went down. It seemed like 1,000 steps to get down to Coogan's Bluff, where the Polo Grounds was. And of course, the game was over. You had to walk up these damn steps that could kill you today. But in those days, every Sunday that the Giants were at home, or most or all teams, was a doubleheader. And I remember seeing, I would go every Sunday in 56 and 57. I was old enough to go by myself. And I remember seeing, a doubleheader with Johnny Antonelli in one game and Ruben Gomez in the other game. And to me, it wasn't about winning or losing. It was about being in a ballpark and bringing 4 or 5 sandwiches by myself to last me through the games. But the only other thing I want to say before I stop talking is we didn't have a TV set. So in 1954, I would basically play hooky from school and go to my grandmother's house who had a TV set. And as you remember, all the games were in the daytime. There were no night games at that time for the World Series. And I would knock on my grandmother's door and tell her I was sick, and she'd let me in and give me a Pepsi, and I'd watch the game. So I watched the World Series basically by being sick the whole time to see it. But the thing about the Giants then, for me, was that I was the only kid in my neighborhood in the Bronx that was a Giant fan. Everybody else was a Yankee fan. And I hated the Yankees. I still hate the Yankees for all the years that they won all the time. Although I did like Yogi Berra, but probably no other Yankee. And the other thing was that for those of you who are New Yorkers, if you wanted to go see the Dodgers, one of the ways to go see them was that you'd save these Elsie wrappers from popsicles, and if you got 10 of them, you sent them in, and you got a ticket. And I would go to, the only time I went to Ebbets Field was because I had the Elsie ticket saved up and was lucky enough to be there, and that was an incredible experience. I think growing up with three teams, you never miss baseball at all. There's always a game on, and whether it was WPIX Channel 11 or WOR Channel 9, with great broadcasters like Russ Hodges and Vin Scully and Red Barber and Mel Allen. It was a terrific experience, and I'm still a Giant fan. I've been to the Candlestick. I've been to Pac Bell. I've been to World Series games, and many of you may not know about this or remember this, but at Pac Bell, they had a Bobby Thompson bobblehead game day, but you had to register for it because they weren't giving them out to everybody who came in. And I flew out to San Francisco for that game, and I got my bobblehead. And whenever I went to Pac Bell, I never bought a seat. I like to walk around, and I was standing out at McCovey's Cove with my bobblehead in a box. And a young woman asked me what was in the box, and I said, "It's a bobblehead." She said, "Would you show it to me?" And I showed it to her. And of course, not only did she had never heard of Bobby Thompson, but she didn't know that the Giants were in New York. I mean, this is 50 years later, and I think I show it to you here. is my Bobby Thompson bobblehead, which I got, and it doesn't work anymore. But when you hit the top of it, Russ Hodges called the home run would come on. So this is one of my treasured possessions here, and I have a map up on the wall here of the Bronx, and there's 2 stars on it, one from where I grew up and one across the river to the polo grounds. So I'm glad to be a part of this, and I've enjoyed this tremendously.
Great, Jerry. Good to see you.
I
Mars and then Harvey.
Mine doesn't work either.
Harvey.
Mars, no good. Harvey, go ahead.
Can't hear you.
Mars, I wish you'd fix your microphone. I really do.
Buy a new one.
You're a little chipper. No, I have had occasion to have had a number of conversations and dinners and lunches with Bobby Thompson. And in one of the early times I met Bobby, we were discussing the trade. He preempted or took over the conversation. He spoke reverently of that trade, even though he was traded from the Giants. He pointed out, he said, I was traded for a pretty good pitcher. And in Bobby's mind, he was indirectly responsible for the Giants winning the World Series in 1954 because Johnny won 21 games. I had no response to it. It was just a wonderful statement by a pretty nice guy himself.
Yeah.
Steve, go ahead.
You know what, Harvey? He got screwed twice. They traded him to the Braves. He missed the Giants series. The Braves traded him back to the Giants in '57. He missed the Braves series. And he was a nice guy.
Bobby, I'm not going to get into the whole conversation because frankly, some of it I can't remember, but he actually played for the Cubs and the Red Sox.
He did at the end.
And before both of them eventually broke their own jinxes, curses, whatever you want to call it. So he was kind of unique, and he was really a nice guy. He was a regular guy, and but his conversation about Johnny Antonelli is particularly pertinent to this discussion and Noel's discussion, which was wonderful. And you very rarely hear the other side of the trade. Sure, Johnny was happy to get to the Giants, and Bobby wasn't particularly happy leaving the Giants, but he was proud of the fact that the Giants traded him for a quality pitcher, which was Johnny Antonelli.
All right, I'm back now using my iPhone. Can you hear me now using my iPhone?
Yes.
Much better.
Okay. May I speak?
Thanks, Mark.
No, go ahead, Mars.
All right. It's back to Noel Hynd. I noticed that in your Polo Grounds picture, it looks like they have the sod for the football field for the New York Giants when they played there until last year was 55. But I want to tell you something. I was at that last Giant Dodger game, Noel, played in the Polo Grounds. It was my 10th birthday, September 8th, 1957. My pop got tickets for my brother and I and my cousins who just lost their father at 47 years old. We were sitting in the upper deck, just on the foul side of the foul pole in right field. In the second inning, Drysdale walked and Junior Gilliam hit a foul ball off my pop's fingertips. The very next pitch was a home run. The Dodgers took a 2-0 lead in the second inning. My memory failed me where I thought Hank Sauer hit the walk-off homer in the ninth, but it was actually in the fourth inning when Mays and Jablonski hit consecutive triples. I think Mays had 2 triples that game. Anyway, after scoring 1 run with Sauer's 2-run homer, the Giants wound up winning 3-2, and the lead held up. It was Kurt Barkley got the win against Don Drysdale.
Good memory.
Mars. Jeff, did you have a question?
Me?
Jeff, I didn't know. Somebody put the chat something, but nothing. Anybody else?
That's me. I'm writing you a note.
Oh, okay. Jim, I got a question for you, Jim.
Yes, sir.
In your corresponding with Johnny, did he mention the preference of New York or San Francisco?
Oh, yeah, big preference for New York. Close to home. Maybe he didn't like to travel. I mean, it was a long way to San Fran, and he just didn't like to travel. And that was one of the. He was happy when he got traded from San Francisco. Just want to come back to the East Coast. He ended up with Cleveland. It wasn't as far east as he had hoped, but he wanted to. It was a travel that beat him down, and I think that led to him getting out of the game. The other thing I just want to
Here's
mention.
one for you, Noel. I don't know if you've seen that photo.
Bill, 1 second. Go ahead, Judge.
Just the other thing, people talking
Oh, I'm
about
sorry.
Bobby Thompson.
Sorry,
When
Dave.
Thompson came back to the Giants and he played on the same team with Johnny, they were actually roommates. And I was just looking for I couldn't find the exact piece of the book, but I know it's in there. And he just describes Bobby Thompson as just one of his best friends ever on the Giants. They were very close.
Sorry, which book?
This is the book about the Johnny Antonelli book by
Oh,
Scott.
okay, good, thank you.
Yeah, real nice pieces in there about.
Noel, if somebody wants to read your piece, how do they go about doing that?
Well, there isn't really one. You'd just be stuck with reading the books have already been published. This is something that I just put together for SABR in Los Angeles because I felt like I wanted to do it. And obviously I was familiar with him and his passing and everything. So
yeah, well, you covered everything, which was great. Really was great. Steve?
Yeah, Noel, when do you expect that next thing to be ready about the Dodgers Giants? You have a date on that one?
I'm hoping by the end of this year, but I'm really not sure yet. It depends how long I take with other things. Quite frankly, my spy novels make 20 times the money that the baseball ones do. But, my heart is in this. So, it's a book I want to write. And I've had so much fun in the last few years meeting baseball people and talking to guys like you and going to SABR meetings that it's kind of my way of writing it all off as a tax deduction.
Well, the Margaret Seeley book was excellent. I didn't know anything about Blossom Seeley. Wonderful.
I just actually did a revision of that because there were a few things that got into print the first time which weren't quite right. In fact, Marquardt lied about his age his entire life. He was actually 3 years older than anybody knew he was. And even on his tombstone, they got it wrong. And in the New York Times, they got it wrong. In the Sporting News, they got it wrong. So Rube had the last laugh on many of us.
All right, let's go. Wait 1 second, Mark. Bill, it's going to be Bill, then Harvey, then Renee, then Harvey.
I was just going to show him. I don't know if you'd seen that photo with. Can you see that one? That's him choking Davy Williams. Yeah, 54 September.
Oh, it's who? Antonelli?
Antonelli. You see him there, and he's choking Davy Williams, jokingly in the clubhouse.
I would hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we hope so. We don't know. Maybe Davy made a critical error. I don't know.
All right, Renee, you're up.
Yeah, my question to you is, you're gonna have something going on that the last year of the Giants and Dodgers. Now, I just want to make sure this is going to be current events of that year as well.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
You're going to do a story about the Giants and Dodgers their last year.
Right. Yeah.
You mentioned Eisenhower years. I mean, is a current events of that year going to be part of that book? And if so, moments in New York sports history of that year also, will that be part of the book as well? Fans, what was going on?
Absolutely. That's a huge part of it. My middle name should be Rabbit Hole because I can't write about a subject without going down rabbit holes and finding out, this was going on and that was going on. And I think one of the fascinating things about American sports is the context in which certain things were going on. I mean, can you really understand the 1936 Olympics without understanding Nazism and the racism that was going on? Can you really understand what one gentleman mentioned a few minutes ago about a specific pinch runner going in for Solly Hemus in Philadelphia? I mean, it's all got to do with the context of what's going on in the world. So that's the long answer, or the moderately long answer. The short answer is yes.
Thank you. That's going to be fun to for you to come back to and read.
Well, there's a reason I'm calling it the Sputnik season, because that's the year Sputnik went up. So go ahead.
Harvey, go ahead.
Noel, you scratched my memory when you showed photographs of Del Crandall. And without Googling it, I wanted to just try to remember it. I remember a second game of a doubleheader that the San Francisco Giants played against the Mets around 1964, which went 23 innings. And
Yeah, I was at that game.
Yeah.
Memorial Day weekend. Memorial Day weekend.
And my recollections, I watched it on TV, but my recollection is that Del Crandall was playing for the Giants.
He hit a double.
And knocked in the go-ahead run.
That's true.
Can I speak? I was at that game also.
Sure.
And at the end, there were only about 5,000 of us left, about 52,000 people. And we were going out to the bullpen continuously where Del Crandall was. I'm not sure, but I think there was a little partying going on there by 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It seemed to be, because definitely the stadium was raucous by that time with so few people left. And it was Del Crandall hit that double and sent us home at 1 o'clock in the morning.
I knew this group. Jimmy Davenport.
What was that, George?
I think he drove in Jimmy Davenport with the winning run. I think that.
I remember Del Crandall getting the hit.
Yeah.
Willie Mays.
That was Shea Stadium.
Are we taking turns here?
It was the first time the Giants came back. It was in May of '64. It was my first game at Shea Stadium, and it was the first appearance of the Giants at back in New York that year.
No, 62, Polo Grounds.
Yeah, well, 1964 was their first appearance. That's what I said.
Did you stay till the end?
No, I actually got home. I lived in Brentwood, Long Island, and we rode the train home. And I watched the last because I was in high school and I had to go to school the next day. We watched the game on television. The end of the game, actually.
I was in high school too.
There was a triple play in that game too.
Yes, yes.
They head into a triple play.
Yeah.
Willie played a little bit of shortstop that game.
Absolutely.
Yes, he
right.
did. Yes,
He did.
But we couldn't leave because the father who brought us from Poughkeepsie, the other kids were hiding around first base. So at the very end, we had to stay because we couldn't find the other kids. And that's how we got to see the whole game. And there's a great story Ralph Kiner tells about Casey Stengel going out to the mound and saying to I think it was Miller pitching, and the Giants had the bases loaded. And all Casey did was circle the mound saying, tra-la, tra-la, tra-la. And he went back to the dugout, Ralph said, and he was going tra-la, tra-la, tra-la. And the next pitch was that triple play, the third base, the second to first.
Wow.
All right.
Morris,
can
go
I
ahead,
talk?
Morris.
All right. Noel, I would love to hear your inner soul, frank feelings on O'Malley and Stoneham taking the Giants out of New York and the differences you feel about those two owners.
Whoa, 25 words or less.
Well, no, more.
Well, my opinion, let me rephrase the answer. Going back and looking at that year, 1957, and actually 56, which was set up, and whether the Dodgers and Giants were going to stay or not, I don't feel that I can have ever been able to come across a moment when O'Malley actually, in his heart of hearts, actually wanted to keep the Dodgers in Brooklyn. And whether Stoneham was toying with the idea of leaving or not, I feel that O'Malley was kind of the villain in the piece, and he was the guy who really brought the Giants along. So, was it a great business move? Sure. Did it rape a borough? Yeah. Did it cut the heart out of Brooklyn for 50 or 70 years? Yeah. So those are my feelings. I don't take it personally. I'm not from Brooklyn, but just looking back on what was going on those years, I don't think there was a snowball's chance in hell that the Dodgers were going to stay. And if the Dodgers were going to leave, the Giants were going to go with them. So that's my quick take on it.
Well, the reason why it tore my heart out. Okay, and it seems like most of our participants have put Horace more or less on a pedestal with this Hall of Fame issue. Okay, but he lost the teams not only in San Francisco.
One second, that is not true. The group has not endorsed his candidacy. Some people have. I contend that if Walter O'Malley's in there, there's no reason why Horace Stoneham should be in there. So I don't know where you're coming up with that stuff, because not everybody's in agreement with me, nor should they be. I don't
obviously
I am not
an
the
emotional
voice.
thing.
Excuse me. I am not the voice to say whether he is or not. It's everybody's part of this group. They decide on their own.
All right, but the reason why I think that O'Malley was more of an astute businessman, and Horace was a follower.
I'd go along with that.
Have you guys all looked at the Jamie Rupert tape?
Yeah.
Over a
Look
few
at the
times.
tape.
Well,
Look at the tape,
it's
Morris.
pretty good, but
that's
back
the
up what Gary
players.
said,
The players
group
had
did not
nothing to
endorse
do.
this.
The players had nothing to do with that move. The players are going to go along and play wherever they could get paid to play.
Yes, but he endorsed the Hispanics. He brought up all the Hispanic players. He had the super scout who's in the Hall of Fame. You know,
That
like Gary
skirts
said,
the issue. That skirts the issue of moving
That's
a
your
team
opinion.
out of
Your
the biggest city in America.
At a
that's your
time,
opinion. You know,
I'm with Mars on this. At a time when Stoneham knew who he had in the pipeline, he had a lot of Hispanic players. The city was changing. The city was getting an influx of Hispanic players. I maintain the Giants would have thrived in New York. Whether or not they would have built a new stadium for them, I don't think so. But well, 7 years later, they built Shea Stadium. They suddenly
those two teams called New York's bluff. They left.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, who would have
Yes,
thought?
but Peter McGowan kept the Giants here by building his own. If Horace would have taken on investors and been an astute businessman in the largest city and the most populous city in America, then you could have kept the Giants there if he was an astute businessman.
He was, and he opened up baseball on the West Coast along with O'Malley. Look at all the expansion that's happened now.
And how
the
many
Braves move, the St. Louis Browns move. They just happen to move far away.
Yeah, and then he lost the team in San Francisco.
Yeah, how many years later did he have to sell the team? The Giants were losing money. They almost
yes, but if you take on
horrible
investors, if you want to keep the team, you take on investors like Peter McGowan did.
Okay.
Let me ask, is Mrs. Payson in the Hall of Fame?
No, of course not.
No.
Well, I mean, she deserves something too.
Yes,
She does. She does. Absolutely. I agree.
This again, before I close out this thing, the organization is not endorsing his candidacy. It's all up to whatever everybody here has their own opinion. And I'm just telling you like it is. Nowhere has it says the New York Giants Preservation Society is saying that. There are many members here who actually feel he does, and there are some who feel he doesn't. You know, Jamie Rupert presented her stuff, and you go from there. I mean, chances are probably that not great unless she has to get him on the ballot. But that is for another discussion. You know, we were here talking about Johnny Antonelli and the New York Giants in the 50s. So
Right.
anybody
Well,
else
Carl
have any?
Erskine made a statement. Carl Erskine made a statement. He didn't even know anything about what was going on with O'Malley
Okay,
and the Parks Commissioner Robert Moses.
With the Giants, Stoneham moving, that's done now. Anybody else have any other questions
Quick thing.
regarding Johnny Antonelli? or
I
anything.
wanted to thank
Charles, go ahead.
Noel. I just wanted to thank Noel for signing my book and sending it back to him. I'm the guy who sent Noel the Polo Grounds book for him to sign. And I was sorry I missed you in San Francisco when you were here.
Ah, that's right. Yeah, I'm hoping to get up there again. They had me in the Giants had me in the their club for seasons ticket holders.
Right.
And I signed a ton of books that night. And they've been mentioning that I could come back, but of course the pandemic struck.
Right.
So
I mailed it to you in Southern California. You sent it right back. Thank you so much.
no, I'm glad I didn't resell it to somebody because you would have caught up with me here. So you're welcome.
Noel, you were in the Gotham Club, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
The only way I could get in was to come in and sign books. Yeah, there you go.
This is Noel's great book that he,
Thank you.
and our organization is actually in here, which is fabulous.
Right.
Thank you.
No,
Can I ask Noel a question?
Sure.
Yeah, well, first we had Renee, then George.
Steve, thank you for that segue, because I was going to say something about that. No, when you were at the Gotham Club, did you see any cool pictures of Johnny Antonelli that you never saw before?
No.
Really? Okay.
No, I don't remember any. He was, as I mentioned, he was not the most popular player that came out. But, you know, the Giant fans in San Francisco took a long time to even adapt to Willie Mays because he was,
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
you know,
Yep.
in fact, they frequently referred to Antonelli as, you know, a guy from New York, which was not meant as a compliment, if you know what I mean. After he made those statements, you know, he should go back to New York. So that has, it's too bad because he was a good guy. And I think he got a bad rap for stuff said in anger out of
That's what happens.
out of context. DeRocher
San
once-
Francisco was a very conservative city back then.
Oh,
They
yeah.
wouldn't even rent a house to Willie Mays.
Well, real quickly, no, thank you for the presentation. Pictures were fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bill, did you want to say something? And then Steve, and then we're gonna wrap it up. Bill Clink, your hands up or you're done?
Yeah, just wanted to, if I could, don't put a cap on that story about that long doubleheader, the longest doubleheader ever. That was the coming out party for a Hall of Famer. Gaylord Perry pitched 10 innings, and in fact, he said, it was quoted in the paper, I could have gone on. And that was really, that was the one thing. The triple play was a big thing, and certainly, you know, the Crandall hit. But up until then, Perry he really wasn't much with the Giants. You know, he was a sometimes long reliever, but he really proved himself in one of the, I can't remember if it was first or second game. I think it was the second. He did the 10 inning stint, and that put him, you know, on a high level with the Giants. So, yeah, I mean, it was a lot of things happened in that doubleheader, that's for sure. I remember.
Antonelli pitched a 16-inning game one time too.
Yeah.
Complete game.
Can I just add something on the Gaylord Perry thing? That
Sure.
was
Yeah,
the
Norm,
first
go ahead.
game. That was the first game where Gaylord Perry threw his spitball.
Yeah.
How do you know?
Talk about that. The stories were all there. And he says that's where the catcher said, okay, give it a try here. We have nothing to lose.
When Perry was warming up in the bullpen, the catcher, I forget who the bullpen, well, it had to be probably Del Crandall, said, you know, try it in the game.
Right.
All right,
Boy,
Steve,
Del
wrap it
Crandall-
up.
Boy,
Steve,
Del Crandall gets blamed now. You know, one of the great plays in that game, and I'm sure guys remember, Cepeda was caught off second, a ground ball to McMillan. He tagged him and almost got a double play. That was unheard of. But just getting back to Mays, you know, we're 2 weeks away from his 90th birthday. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out. I don't, Gary, you haven't heard anything yet from any of the characters, right?
Nope.
For some reason, I just follow Mays's house. I Zillow it. I mean, I have the address. He's in Atherton, California. The value of the house went up $800,000 last month. It is now worth $9.4 million. He's been there since 1969. Who knows what he paid for it? And I don't know, Harvey, I don't know if you know or if anybody knows. I don't think he really has any heirs except the adopted son, Michael. Is that correct?
I'm not even sure Michael's still alive.
Yes.
I think
It
it
is?
is.
I can tell you
think
it
he
is a really nice house, and it has a stone M in the driveway.
Okay.
I've been by his house. It's right near the Atherton train station. I have a
Correct.
friend of mine who used to live in Atherton years ago, and I would come visit him, and he would be always late to pick me up. So I would walk over and see Willie Mays' house, and then walk back.
There you go.
Well, concerning Willie Mays, I would actually be quite surprised and delighted if Larry Baer actually ever gets together with all the investors and calls it Willie Mays Field at Oracle Park. I hope
I would
don't
love that.
sweep it under the rug.
I hope you're wrong, Mars, but you know, I watched the Oakland game last night, and for the first time I saw Ricky Henderson Field. I mean, there's really no, I don't know. You know what? It's out of our, like Gary says, we can't endorse it as a group, any of these things. It's out of our control. But we have some terrific ideas. The simplest would have been Eddie Logan Clubhouse. How hard is that to do? And he even asked Ed, would you mind if it's on the visiting side? There was, I mean, I don't know. I was hoping one of the guys would be on tonight. He's not on.
We're
Russ
hoping that Rick Swig, who's friends and a stockholder, will have a great input in this.
Rick is not a stockholder. I can confirm this. But I will tell you just a couple of clarifications. Michael Mays is still living. In fact, he was with his father this week. And
What is he, in his 60s? He's in his 60s?
Yeah, we were in the same school, the grammar school together. I was in the 8th grade, and he was in kindergarten when I was in the 8th grade, and I'm 70. So
all right, so he's 62, 63.
Yeah, that good math. That must have been Steve because he's a teacher.
That's
right. So the other thing is, ESPN has been. I had lunch with Mike Murphy yesterday, and he said that ESPN has asked him to do a big interview. And then I talked to another Giants player today who said that they want to interview him as well. And so there are tributes which are going to appear. Willie may or may not appear just because he's old, you know, and he's just really, it's hard for him to get out. So if you don't see him, it's not because he's blowing anybody off. It's just that he's, you know, at that point in his life.
Well, Rick, have you had any further conversations with Larry Baer about Willie Mays Field?
Oh yeah, I've been pushing him, and I've been blown off a couple of times. But I know that Willie took Steve's recommendation to heart, and but you know, as he pointed out, these very, very valuable corporate relationships sometimes aren't dealt with from the heart; they're dealt with from the spreadsheet. So, but I know he took Steve's advice very, very much to heart, and we'll find out because they haven't quite figured out what's going to happen on May 7th. May 6th, as it turns out, happens to be a day off, but May 7th, they're back in town, so they haven't figured out what they're going to do.
I got a quick question, Rick.
Renee, why don't we wrap this up, and then whoever wants to stay on, can ask Rick the question. But Noel, I don't know if you're busy. We don't want to keep you, but we cannot thank you enough for a fabulous job tonight. We look forward to the next time you speak. Jeff Stewart will be up next week. He's also in the crowd tonight talking about Twilight Teens. But if we can all give a round of applause to Noel Hynd.
Thank you very much.